Hello from Bogota, Colombia. Today I'm going to take you guys down to the Bronx. Up until 5 years ago, the Bronx was a neighborhood where people were allowed to buy and consume drugs. It was also rife with underage prostitution and arms sales, and it was controlled by gangs and former paramilitaries. People here called it La Olla, the hell. 17 years ago, I was living up there and trying to cut my teeth as a journalist, and one day I decided to walk down to the Bronx in search of a story. It was unlike any place I had ever seen, and I ended up having one of the scariest experiences of my life. Let's walk down and I'll tell you all about it. So we're on the Calle 10, really beautiful street actually. It's got all kinds of restaurants, coffee shops. There's even people that come here to take pictures. Muy bonita. Another important landmark on Calle 10 is the Teatro Colón. This is probably the city's most famous theater. Some fresh squeezed orange juice. Should we stop for a glass? I think we should. Hola.
Buenas.
¿Cómo están?
Bien, ¿tú cómo estás? El vasito de juguito vale 2,000 pesitos.
Okay. We've now reached the very famous Plaza Bolivar. There's always a lot of pigeons. People like feeding the pigeons out here. I believe here is a church. Hey, ¿cómo estás? ¿No me acuerdas?
Mateo.
Mateo. ¿Cómo estás? ¿Cómo está todo?
Muy bien.
Muy bien.
Perfecto.
This gentleman, I also know from many years, he's been on the streets, and I've always really liked him. He's very different from everybody else. He's super intelligent. He's usually carrying around all these newspapers and magazines. ¿Cómo fue el Bronx?
El Bronx.
Antes y ahora.
El Bronx no se acabó. Eso es una mentira del Estado. El Bronx simplemente lo dispersaron por toda Bogotá. Que todo lo que dijeron que iban a hacer ahí, no lo han hecho.
All right, so we've reached Carrera, or crossing number 10. As you'll see in a moment, we'll cross. The mood kind of really changes on the other side. This is typical Colombian fare. You got chicharrón, papas. This is plátano, that's an arepa. Comida típica, ¿no?
Chicharrón.
¿A ti te gusta el chicharrón?
Claro que sí. Marrano y todo, el tocino, todo.
Señora, ¿cómo se llama este barrio aquí?
Esto es Jessica Estrada.
Yo pensé había otro nombre. ¿Eso se llama qué? ¿Jessica Herrera? ¿Algo así?
Esa es carrera 10.
San Victorino.
San Victorino, eso es el nombre que yo estaba buscando. Gracias. Se ve rico, señor.
Sí, comer plátano.
The Bronx, as it was when I went there, no longer exists. In 2017, the city sent in 2,000 police officers, and they completely shut down the whole area. Hola.
Hola.
¿Tú sabes si yo puedo entrar y caminar un poquito por aquí?
No puedes entrar.
¿Pero tú
¿qué quieres?
entraste?
Hago parte del proyecto.
Ah.
Trabajo acá.
¿Qué más van a construir aquí? Yo
Va a
pensé
quedar
que
el Sena.
va a tener una...
Va a haber un Sena aparte y va a quedar lugares de emprendimiento. Y acá va a quedar el museo, que se llama el Museo de la Esquina Redonda.
que explica lo que pasó aquí.
Exactamente, sí.
Van a decir todas las cosas pesados, malos que pasaron por aquí.
Y no solo cosas malas, porque en este lugar hubieron muchísimas cosas buenas. Acá se construía el amor, ¿sí? Se conocían parejas, hacían sus hogares. Acá también vivían familias con hijos que no eran consumidores, porque llegaban a este lugar por desplazamiento.
When I walked down here, there was a barrier just like this, and there were two police officers standing right here on their outside with their backs to the area. At that time, there were buildings like this that stretched all the way to the barrier down there. It was essentially like these little shops here on the bottom that were either like bars or they had slot machines. They also had it the same thing on this side. All this was buildings and shops along this side. And along the road, there were, you know, addicts that were lying on the ground, passed out, you know, sleeping in their own filth. And then there were also vendors that had couches and chairs, and their clients would come and sit and consume the drugs here. It's not everybody that came here were serious, like crack addicts. You know, some people came, they just would smoke marijuana, and they sold food, coffee. It was this whole unique ecosystem. I walked here, this little road, and I went up there, and I started walking back this direction. And when I got to about here, right here, I was stopped by this big guy. He was wearing a leather jacket and these big boots. And he asked me what I was doing, did I have a camera? And he wanted to take me into one of these shops and search me. And I was terrified to go in there because these shops are connected to the building, and it's really in the buildings that all these horrible, unspeakable things, murders, torture, you know, went on. He opened up his jacket to show me that he had a gun. By this time, a bunch of other addicts had gathered around and were encouraging him to take me inside there. They were saying he's a gringo spy, he's a gringo spy. And I pleaded with the guy to, if he wanted to search me, to just do it out here. I showed him I only had a pad and paper. I didn't have any bad intentions. And it took about 10 seconds for him to make up his mind. And ultimately, he decided to let me go. But I'll tell you, that was probably the most terrifying 10 seconds of my entire life. You would think that that would be the last time I would go into this place, but I actually came back a few days later with a friend of mine who had a contact. He was friends with one of the women that sold drugs here, and he introduced me to her, and every time I went in, I'd go directly to her. I'd buy some marijuana from her and sit on her couch, and I was protected there, and I was able to observe everything and meet some of her clients. ¿Por qué gente te llaman? ¿Estás...
Sí, para trabajar.
Para trabajar. ¿Haces
Yeah.
cualquier con eso? Ah, es una buena forma de hacer tu propia advertencia.
Claro, a veces tengo varios modelos.
Well, everyone, we've reached Plaza España. We started all the way up there, and we've walked down about 16 blocks. I hope you found the journey interesting, and I'll be back soon to take you to more interesting places and tell you more interesting stories from here in Colombia.